because of the investment, because of the community, and because of the leadership in the community, I was able to do that work and then learn from the other side of getting uncomfortable. Do the hard thing because it's going to lead you by experience to understand what are the things that I'm just avoiding because I'm afraid of it, and what are the things that I'm avoiding because I really need to pass this off to somebody else.
So in today's video, I'm interviewing one of our students inside of the Consulting Blueprint program, Sam and his wife, Miranda. And these two people joined us with zero background experience, no understanding of what niche they would be serving or anything like that. They just joined saying, look, we want to try the coaching business model. We like how it integrates into our lifestyle and everything. They've got 3 kids and they figured they could give it a shot. And within, a year of really a lot of hard work and figuring out some of the basics of exactly what they're going to sell, who they're going to sell to, learning, how to deliver for clients and everything, and a lot of close calls, they eventually signed their first $15,000 single client, which is amazing. And so they're going to detail for you how they did it in this interview and everything, and how they plan to continue to scale their business. So their niche is they actually help married entrepreneurs live balanced lifestyles while running their business and also, managing their marriage and their family and everything, which is really cool to me. And so they joined the program, with no idea what their niche would be, no experience in sales or business or anything, and from total scratch. Literally just ran into our YouTube one day or saw an ad or something and decided to join, and here they are today. So, their goal is that next year they sell at least $150,000 worth of their services, which they're going to blow that away from the looks of it. So it's really cool to me to see people who, have no experience that got started in this business and are succeeding today because of it. So I want you to watch this interview in full and glean what you can from it, because this is really the power of what we teach inside of the Consulting Blueprint program. So before we get into the interview, I want you to take some time to, if you're interested in speaking with myself and the team about our program, about starting your business and everything, book your direct one-to-one free consult call with myself or my team using the top link in the description. It'll take you to a page where you can put in a time and a date and everything. Fill out a very short form, so you just make sure you're not a robot or a spam or anything. Give us all the information that we need in order to really serve you, and we'll hop on over Zoom at that time to see if it makes sense for you to get started with us. And most of the time on these calls, if it's a good fit, we'll just get started. If it's not, we'll let you know exactly why that's the case, and we'll have you come back later when it is a good fit, or we'll let you just know, we'll let you down easy as to why we don't think we can help you. Okay, so use that resource in the description below. Besides that, enjoy the interview with Sam and Miranda. All right. Sam and Miranda, welcome to the channel.
Hi.
Thanks. Hey.
Absolutely. So you guys have been in the community for a good minute now, and balancing running this business with, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a dog, and you guys also have a few kids as well,
2,
right?
yeah.
2 kids. So yeah, you got a lot going on, and yet you're still able to manage to close the client you closed. So for the audience, just kind of open up, start telling them about what your experience has been as a byproduct of your investment into the Consulting Blueprint program, what you've learned and how that led to the sale and everything, just kind of wherever you want to start. I know it's a very loaded question, but I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff to tell. Sure.
Yeah. So we recently closed a client for $15,000, and we're really excited about that. That's going to be our first sale here in our business, and
it's insane. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the big reason we were able to close that was a lot of what gets taught in CB. I think for me, like the thing that I had to work on most was like, I say it as living my life out loud, of just like being able to share what I believe, what I'm doing, and just the whole process of building an audience and reaching out to people. I think for me was something I was totally unfamiliar with and even resistant to as a beginner. And so for me, that was pretty big. But
could you, I hate to interrupt you, could you speak to that a little bit? We hear that all the time. Like, it's just like, I've never built a platform online. I've never put out content. Like, because I grew up doing it, honestly. Like I from the age of like 13 on, I've always put something on the internet. So it's very developmental for me. So I have a point of disconnect with our students who would enroll if they didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? So do you mind speaking to that a little bit? Because like for me, that's just such a natural thing to me. Like, what was it like
staring building a brand online in the face and like becoming putting out content and building that platform? Like what was that like? Because it sounds like that really served you guys in making the sale.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I say it was a hard time for me, but it was probably much easier for me than it was for Miranda.
Yeah.
So maybe you have something to say there.
Yeah, please.
I kind of laugh whenever you're like, I grew up putting content on, because that makes me feel really old. Not in a bad way, but like I remember when Facebook became a thing. Like,
Wow.
um, and like I remember like well, you don't put everything online. You don't tell people certain things, and so like I kind of still have that ingrained in me. And so like I see that little bit of a generation shift there. But like just really learning how to utilize experiences that we have, but like being able to turn that so that we can help others through similar experiences.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. You're putting out a message to help others. That's all content is, right? It's like, and you guys have experienced that. It's like, oh, they watch your content. They're like, oh, this is good. We see why they do what they do. We're getting value out of this, which I'm sure in large part helped inspire that client to move forward with you. It's interesting how it works, isn't it? You just put out some bites, you put out the bait, and then it turns into this fantastic relationship on the back of it. Which is, why we've got that YouTube training in the program now, and we're helping people build their platform. We've got one client, he's got like 800,000 followers on TikTok now. And so it's just like content strategy, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So tell me about how it felt to make that first sale. And like, did you guys, and before we kicked off the recording, Sam, you said something interesting. You're like, it just kind of felt like, yeah, like, of course, by now we would do it.
Yeah, it's funny.
But help me understand what that was like.
Yeah, so I knew that the deal was on the table for about a month before it closed, and it was just a matter of a little bit of waiting, patience, and follow up with that. But so preceding it, it can feel a lot like really anxiety inducing of like, how is this going to close? What are the details that we're going to work out? And this could be even bigger than I'm thinking, but it closed for a great amount. And so there's all these what ifs, but once you work out a deal with somebody, once you sign a client, to me, it just felt like, okay, well, I mean, since this was our first sale, it just felt like now everything we've been training for is going into motion.
Yes.
It just felt like there's that one missing like track in the whole system that okay, now like past 10 years really we've been just accumulating experiences that we've because of our content marketing and figuring out our audience and our message. It's so iterative that once somebody finally comes through the door and is ready to work with you, it just feels like, oh, this is it. Let's do it. This felt great.
Absolutely. And does it feel at all like, I don't know about you, but I remember that the very first sale, obviously I started as wedding photography coaching, right? That very first sale, it was like, okay, it's almost like I psychoanalyzed, like, why did they buy, what motivated them and everything. And then I just took, it was almost like I felt like I probably put up videos for like 4 months before anything actually happened. But it was like the 2 weeks leading up to that sale, I started looking at that content and be like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to say. That gets people to move. Are you guys feeling that way at all? Where it's like, oh, only recently have we discovered like, this is why people buy, and we should just talk more about that. Is that phenomenon happening to you guys? Or do you feel like it legitimately took all that content to make this sale? Or do you feel like there was a certain few things that you said that really clicked that you're going to say more of?
Yeah, so I like what you're saying. I think it is maybe two things there. I mentioned the more long tail side of things where in my experience, I feel like, and I'm probably not uncommon in this, but in my head, I know what I'm there to give. I know how I'm going to help, who to help. And it takes practice to let that come out of your mouth in a way that other people understand. So there is that iterative process, but in the moment where that sales cycle began and we ended up closing the client, it really just came down to naturally maintaining a relationship.
Yep.
It really wasn't any harder than that.
Mm-hmm.
And just speaking truthfully and like I would anybody that I'm trying to foster a relationship with.
Totally. Helping the prospect make the best decision for themselves.
Right.
That's what we say sales is. You know, you build an offer that's good enough that when, you know, a potential student, we call them a prospect or student, whatever you want to call them, comes to you and says, hey, this is where we would like to get, here's by when we'd like to get there, here's the problems we're facing and everything, that then, okay, compared to the price point of your offer, the deliverables of all of it, where they are currently, the best decision is often to move forward, you know? And so that's I love that perspective of that's really what a sales cycle is. And I think especially a lot of like beginners, like people who have literally never started their own business, are really intimidated by that process, because the word sales and the word like prospect and these words can really overwhelm some people. Could you speak to that at all? Because, you know, you guys are a phenomenon. I love it. Like, you guys total beginners, you know what I mean? Some of our students, granted, have some business experience, and that's awesome. But you guys are total beginners from what I'm concerned. So could you speak maybe to that a little bit for the people that are maybe overwhelmed by hearing me use those words, or they're like, oh, this isn't for me because I don't sell to prospects, you know what I mean? But I can imagine that that's, you know, I don't know what that looks like, because I feel like ever since I was like 14, I've kind of been entrepreneurial, making deals, doing stuff like that. I never really saw it as selling to prospects. So maybe if you guys could speak to like how you worked through that, that would be really valuable to the listener.
What would you say?
I mean, for me, it like comes down to like just really getting to know the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we work with individuals to help strengthen relationships and to
Mm-hmm.
help them to use their strengths, their core strengths of their personalities to work with other people. So we're a lot more on the relationship side of things. And so if we're not focusing on fostering a relationship in the beginning with them, like how can we help them after a sale? And so like really focusing on like engaging in that relationship has been really big, and being interested in them as people.
Yeah, and I'd add to that um, I think when it comes to couples that are supporting each other or even working together, you can there are a lot of things that you can double down on that are great strengths, and there are often on the other side of things there can be gaps that you share. And so for us at the start, I would say that we shared a gap in that idea of just putting yourself out there, talking to people, prospecting, just like getting sales conversations going. That was really, really difficult for us. And I think the thing that helped us change that was we took everything in CB and we used it and made it our own, so that something that felt unfamiliar to us became familiar. We used it in a way that worked for us. And I think, I mean, not that it needed much rework or anything at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like of what makes it comfortable for me.
That's really good. And it's cool that you say that, because I think every single one of our successful students takes it and then kind of pours their own juice on it. You know, it's like, okay, Trey's using this word in the script or whatever. I'm going to replace that word with this word because I just think that that's more like us. And every student success is like some hybrid of like, this is how we teach it, but then they made it their own in this way, you know? And it's always really inspiring to see, because it's like, it tells me like, you know, I try my best, and we try our best in our company, and my coaches is who I'm talking about and everything, and to teach fundamental things that will just kind of never change, you know, and then applying those things to the internet, which is just like relationship building, you know, helping the prospect make the best decision for themselves, being very customer focused in your dealings in general, just things that don't really ever change, and then using those things, applying them to the internet, and specifically the online coaching business model. And so it's cool to me that you guys are saying that, because what I hear, having had 3.5, 4 years of experience helping people like you do this, is you are starting to uncover the fundamentals that will always work for forever, but you're making them your own in context with your own personal goals and how you guys want to operate as a couple and as a business, right? You're taking those and you're putting your own spin on them and not making any fundamental changes, but giving it your own flavor, right? Would that be one way of putting it?
Yeah, I'd say that, I mean, as well in the program with the mindset training, I think for
Mm,
me, it went from a I am not a sales kind of guy. I am not the kind of guy who makes posts about everything I'm thinking, or at least, things that are relevant, or makes posts about my life, and shares
yeah.
that kind of personal, I saw as like deeply personal stuff.
Mm,
Um, that it helped me see I don't have to be the things I don't like, that I can
mm,
see the good in that and then
mm,
embody that. And
mm.
then later on the line, I can find somebody who's naturally that way and to bring onto the team, and that's great. Like we
Yep,
need other people
totally.
who have talents where we don't. But for the time being, I think it was a huge growth opportunity for me.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I love that. Speak to the moment it happened. Like, you guys have put in this work, you've built, I mean, because from what I remember, you guys kind of went through a few different iterations of your business and of like, we're gonna do this, oh no, we're gonna do this instead, and kind of changing how you word your offer and changing the positioning. And that's a very natural process for beginners, like trying to find that market resonance.
Mhm.
Now today you figured it out, you made a sale. Speak to me like the 15-minute period where you're like, oh man, it's like it happened. Like, what was that like how did that feel? What exchanged between you two as a couple? Kind of what was that like?
What was it like?
For me, this one was a little unique because for the past couple of months, I've stepped back for some personal reasons
Mm,
from being really active
mm,
in the business. So like it was really like Sam and all of
mm,
it.
mm,
And with this one is unique because we're not working with couples.
mm,
Sam's working with individuals in a company.
mhm,
Um, and so it's a little bit different than what we like our target audience is with,
mhm,
but um like still really exciting. And like just being able to, like I I feel like whenever it was official and it closed, it was just like this big breath of fresh air. It's like, okay,
mm.
like we can breathe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like something's coming in, like
Mm,
that, like
mm,
that reassurance that like yeah, we're on the right track,
yep.
going in the right direction. And um I think with this particular client, like we may like we'll have this one, but like we may change it up a little bit if we take
Mhm,
on other corporate clients where
mhm,
like we work with them, but like the employees, but we also like try and incorporate their spouse in it
mm,
too,
mm,
so that we get more of that relationship. Because whatever business you're in, whether it's an entrepreneur business or you're working with a company in a leadership position, like
mhm,
whether your spouse is in the like visible in the business or not, like they're still there. They're
mhm,
still like whether it's just a supportive role or active role, like that relationship still needs to be strengthened. Otherwise, it could atrophy and die,
mhm,
and that's what we want to prevent. So,
mhm. Very good. So Miranda's saying it was like a breath of fresh air. I felt like you guys are going in the right direction. What about you, Sam? Would you mirror that sentiment and say that felt the same to you, or were there more ways that you felt in that moment? That moment where I don't know if it was an email you got back or they told you verbally on a Zoom or whatever it was, but maybe for you, what was that like?
Yeah, it's funny how some things can close. I'm sure you have some funny experiences, but for me it
Hmm.
was, yeah, it was I reached out to him, the decision maker, just
Hmm.
to follow up and say, hey, can we, bang out a work agreement?
Hmm.
He's like, well, I'm going to be busy for like a week and a half. And they're like, okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
Like, just be patient. I know it's going to close if I can be
Hmm.
patient. And then a half hour later, he just said, okay, here's what I'm setting you up at. I was like, well, that's more
Nice.
than I was expecting. So
There
great.
you go. Awesome.
No pushback there.
That's awesome.
um, yeah. So I would say, I mean, leading up to that, I mean, because we've been just getting from 0 to 1 can be it's probably been the hardest thing I've done so far, and we've done some hard things.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'd say like one of the big things I learned from this whole experience so far is that you have to get pretty granular sometimes in terms of gratitude. I
Mm,
don't think there's anything too small to celebrate.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. What do you mean? Like, what things were you guys celebrating?
I think for me,
reaching 150, or actually we're at 170, 167 in our
Oh.
Facebook group.
Yeah, we're doing a little
Nice.
Facebook group. Yeah.
Like,
You know, hitting a certain number of people reached out to in a day.
Mm,
Just
mm,
like every little thing, a positive interaction, a good like pro bono coaching call,
mm.
just anything that will help us see that this is something people need, this is something they
Yep.
want, and we're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because sometimes, that first check can be kind of elusive. And so I think maybe in my own words, what you guys are saying is like you need to find other things to celebrate until that first check hits, just so that you don't feel like you're just screaming into the void and nothing's coming back. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, if the only parameter of success we had was revenue, then it would have made the past about year or so pretty hard.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, what do you guys think the future of the business looks like? So you've closed this client, so you've got proof of concept now. It's like, okay, people will pay for this. And not only will they pay for it, but they'll pay pretty well too. What do you think the future looks like? Can you guys project out? I know, a lot of the time, even for somebody in my shoes with my company, like it's often hard to look too far out. But next 6 to 12 months, what are you guys aiming to do in terms of revenue, in terms of like client satisfaction? Like, where do you want to see the business? Because I think it's been like less than 2 weeks since this first client came through. So now you're starting to see maybe what that relationship with the paying client looks like. So it's probably giving you a lot more context for the future. So with that being said, what do you think the future holds for you two?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a learning process, of course, and so we'll see how things start to balance as we take on more work with more clients. But yeah, I mean, it's funny, we had the goal of getting this thing rolling and having the clients coming through and replacing our income, and it seems like, at least in this instance, all of our dreams came true just a year later than we expected. And so it's funny when we put timelines on certain things, but I would say like what I'm expecting in the next year or so is for things to really ramp up relative to where we've been. And so we want to see where we can take corporate clients, grow from that. We want to see if we can add some private clients as well, because working directly with couples is really what we are most passionate about, and having them play to their strengths every day. So for us, I mean, I'd say in terms of like monthly revenue, like I'm not coming up for air until we're hitting 40K a month, right? That's
Awesome.
as good a benchmark as any.
Yeah, it's a really solid benchmark. Yeah, and I have no doubt you guys can do it. I think especially it's kind of like a 4-minute mile. My first like proper sale took me about a year as well. It was like within 2 months I got my next one, and then things just started picking up because once you. I read a book once by the founders of the company 37 Signals. They run a software called Basecamp. I don't know if you've ever heard of Basecamp. It's like a project management tool. And in their book, they said like there's this very popular concept that like, oh, you fail forward, by failing you learn. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But we don't talk enough about the inverse, that when you succeed, so long as you can reverse engineer why that happened, that is significant. The reason why failures are valuable is so that when you succeed, you know how to do it right. And so like now that you know what went right, I think my challenge to you two moving into this next year, because I have no doubt you can do those revenue numbers, is to look at what worked and reverse engineer it as well as you possibly can. And even if that means 2 or 3 months into this relationship with this current client, being like, so why exactly did you decide to work with me? Because we want more clients, like, and you can just speak that openly and then get their feedback. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we liked this about you. We didn't like this about the competition. We liked that the offer had these things in it, and we liked that this, you know what I mean? And you start to get that feedback. That's when things can just take off. So this is more than just a $15,000, conversion. I think it's also, if done right, can give you the data and the ammunition to go out and sell hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of services in the future. You just need to pay attention to why it worked. you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's extremely valuable data, and I think it's very easy to look at that first conversion and write it off as like luck, or write it off as a single instance. But I think I really could have sped up my journey if I'd have just realized that like the same traits that make up one conversion are gonna 80% of those traits are you're gonna find in the rest of your conversions as well.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it was a person with this situation who wanted this outcome, liked these deliverables, and liked this approach on the call. So we should just replicate those things over and over and over again, right? So yeah, that would be my input, is, you know,
Yeah.
replicate it as much as you can. You know, I know you want to work with more private clients, but yeah, at the same time, for me, in my opinion, you know, if it works, like scale it, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's, I mean, that's the idea, is to maybe make some sort of hybrid, because
mm,
we'll be working with employees here
mm,
in this instance, but
mm,
I'm reporting directly to the CEO and his management team. And so
mm,
I think for us, like, I'm so passionate about business and business leadership
mm,
that being able to, because being able to help people in those kinds of positions, especially as businesses grow,
mm,
from small to larger,
mm,
that, look, I mean, marriages are, I don't want to say like that they're never safe, but I'm just saying that
mm,
like things can fall apart in your 20s and they can fall apart in your 50s.
mm,
So like people need help, and they'll invest in the things that they value most. And so
absolutely.
that's something that we really love. And one thing um, from from in the program that I really appreciate from all this is, like, again, the mindset, because I used to have like so much energy towards, I gotta start making some money. I gotta provide. Like, I'm the man. I gotta prove some concept. I'm like really embarrassing myself by
Mm,
trying to get this thing going in front of my friends and family.
mm,
But then at the same time, as soon as I let go and just tried to offer what I could, what I knew, how I knew I could help other people, as soon as I just started focusing on helping other people, I realized that all the anxiety I had before the sale, there was still going to be anxiety on the other side of the sale, which you just
mhm,
mentioned was, oh, well, is this just a fluke?
mhm,
Where's the next one going to come from? And so
mhm,
anxiety is going to be there either way if you
mhm.
let it. So it's better to focus on service and gratitude.
Absolutely. Totally. I completely agree with that sentiment. And, you know, even for us taking our company to another level here, especially like I'd say 2023 January, because like I'm getting married in 38 days, and like I've got a lot of moving
Nice.
pieces in my life. But yeah, it's super exciting. And so like I can only do so much in the business right now, because you
Mm,
guys know that when you're getting married, it's like pretty much all you think about. It's like
mm,
getting married, you know?
Mhm.
But so yeah. So like January 2023, like I think we're kicking into another gear. We plan to release a lot of stuff and go a lot harder than we are currently. And one of the things that I think is important to think about when you start to build out a team, because right now you are your own team and everything, is just the mental posture that you have. And probably the most important mental posture for this specific business model is, you know, intense focus on the results that your customers are getting, and just gratitude with them. So if you're to point gratitude in another direction, it would be like gratitude for the results that your students are seeing, and like hence why we set up this interview. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I noticed recently, like, I haven't done a student interview in like 3 or 4 months. Why is that? I was like, well, I'm focusing on getting married, building a new product, building better marketing systems, building up the team, building better operations, finance tracking systems for the business, all this back end stuff. And then it's like, that's all good. But then it just, again, I'm like drawn right back to like, oh, wait, like Sam and Miranda just closed an amazing client. And I've got like 5 or 6 interviews lined up for this week, just because it was like had my head underwater for so long. So, um, as well as being grateful for the opportunity, I'd also say like join your students or clients in gratefulness for their results as well, and only good
Mm,
things will come. Um, I'll wrap up with this. If you were to boil down, I know this is a big question. If you were to boil down, you know, your investment into the consulting blueprint program, the community and everything, into just a few key lessons that led to what you have today, what would those lessons be? And then follow-up question, what's your advice for a total beginner in this business model? So either one you want to hit first, but that's how I always like to wrap things up.
yeah.
I think for me, is like finding your tribe.
Mm.
Or community, whatever word you want to use with that. Just finding a group that is going to be there to encourage you and to support you, but like also that's willing to check in if you haven't shown your face in a bit and be like, hey, like, you're still alive over there. Especially in the world that we live in today, where like we're coming out of the pandemic, where there's all of society's going crazy. But like really having that group that's going to support you and help you in the journey, to make sure that you're staying on track and that you're actually able to get to your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. That's why we do it the way we do it. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'd add that yeah, we had the opportunity to, this was just like within the CB community, but like not required or anything. A bunch of people decided to do 75 hard just to like ramp up the productivity and the discipline and stuff. And I think for us that came at a really good time because there were a lot of things in our environment that were working against us. But once we committed to that on top of the things we were committed to do within CB, how we were going to use CB to help us get our business started, that was something like, because we chose to participate in it together. I think that was a great advantage of ours, was that there was one day where Miranda just did not, she was just ready to be done. And because of the community that was built in there and the trust that was present, we were able to I was able to push her. We were able to keep going. And I think that seamlessly, transferred to all the work that we've been doing in our own business. And so as far as for beginners, I'd say,
do the hard thing.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'd say. It's do the hard thing. And I think do the hard thing because it's going to lead you by experience to understand what are the things that I'm just avoiding because I'm afraid of it, and what are the things that I'm avoiding because I really need to pass this off to somebody else. And I think there can be some wiggle room there. I understand that there's a lot to be said about just grinding. But I think also, it's a big world and there are lots of really cool, interesting people that you can win over and you can get them on your team and get you helping you. It really helps if you're already married to them.
I'm sure that's a huge in.
Yeah. It can be a roadblock as well, but I'd say for beginners, do the hard thing, and you'll soon find that it wasn't as scary as you thought, and that things come quicker when you stop hyper focusing on what you lack.
It's very good. So your life and your business tends to move in the direction of your focus, right? So if you're focused on like, I don't have this, I'm not the authority, I'm not good at sales, I don't have, you end up focusing on that, and you can only move in that direction. I think you made a great final point there of like, you're going to see whatever you're focusing on, basically. If you decide to look for evidence that you can close, a $15,000 client, or that you can add that much value to somebody, or, if you start to focus on evidence and just consciously decide to look for evidence that you can build a platform, you can start to attract people and do business with them, then like you'll find it. So very cool, guys. Well, thank you for your time. Just for your sake, I'm not actually going to end the Zoom. I'm just going to end the recording. But thanks for being on the channel, and best of luck over the next year or so of getting to that 40K month mark. Even though I don't think you'll need luck. I think you'll just need a very consistent approach based on what's worked so far.
Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Absolutely.